Okay, so how Facebook ads work, they're set up into three pillars essentially. You have your campaign, you have your ad set, and you have your ad. A campaign is where you're going to set your overall objective and potentially your budget if you choose to go with campaign budget optimization. And then within ad set, that's going to be how you choose the audience that you'd like to run the advertisement in front of, the different placements on Facebook and Instagram that you'd like to put your ad on. So that might be the Facebook news feed, that may be Instagram stories, different things like that. And then finally, your budget and schedule. Budget doesn't necessarily have to be in ad set. It can also be in campaign, or excuse me, it could rather be in campaign. And then finally, your ad. That's where your creative goes, and your copy, your headline, and your call to action button. And also where you can set up which Facebook pixel you'd like to use to track all of it. So going into campaign, we have our marketing objective here is really the main purpose for this panel. And we have a couple different columns here. And these sort of represent your traditional marketing funnel, where you have awareness, consideration, and then conversion. And so a lot of times within an account, we'll have sort of a mix of all three of these different columns mixed in with our approach. So, awareness would be to make new people aware of the brand. And the difference between these two here, brand awareness and reach, is that the brand awareness gives you a little bit more AI when it comes to finding people who would be interested in a particular brand. It has more so to do with like recalling the brand, whereas reach is more of just casting a wide net. You can certainly set your demographics here in ad set, but there is a little bit more AI behind the scenes to brand awareness. Now, why you would use reach instead of brand awareness is that it's actually going to be cheaper. So you'll get more views and more reach, if you will, when using it. But brand awareness would net you maybe a little bit more. You'd be a little bit more narrowed down into exactly who's seeing your advertisements and that they're potentially interested. In the consideration column, we have the most options here. One being traffic. That would be traffic to maybe a website or a particular landing page. Next, we have engagement. So if you wanted more engagement on your Facebook page or on a particular ad, you could do that as well. App installs essentially is self-explanatory. That's to get people to install or try an ad. Video views. This is helpful when you are running campaigns in order to see who may be interested in a service or product. So video views will optimize to get you the most views. And what you can do off of running a campaign like that is creating a separate campaign that targets people who have viewed your video for X amount of time. So, you scroll through your feed, you see a video, it starts automatically playing, but you scroll past it. To me, that signifies that that person wasn't necessarily interested. So we don't want to continue to waste our ad spend on those type of people. So we're going to run our future ads based on how much people have watched the video in the past. I explained that a little confusing. So essentially what we can do is we can target our future campaigns based on our previous campaigns. So I can set a future campaign up that says, hey, I want to only target people who have watched my previous video for 50% of the duration, or 75% of the duration, or 95% of the duration. And through that, I can sort of guesstimate that, okay, if you've watched 75% of the video, you were probably interested in the product or service, or you're at least engaged by the post. So as campaigns grow and your marketing grows, you can sort of narrow down to a particular niche who's actually interested in watching your video. So that's what we would use video views for predominantly. And then lead generation. Lead generation is a lead generation form that a person would fill out. So you would potentially give them some additional information in the lead gen form, and then they could fill in their name, information, email address, things like that, what they're interested in, what particular service, things like that. Lastly is messages. So this allows for a direct message between the consumer and your business. This works in two ways. This can be open-ended, meaning that it's essentially just a what would you call it? Just a regular direct message, or you can sort of combine the two here, lead generation and messages. So you could create a message bot that has preformed questions such as, what's your name, what's your address, what are you interested in, and then based on those answers, it creates a lead gen form for you that you can then go ahead and contact that lead about. As far as messages go, sometimes it's a little tricky. It really depends on the business. What I find is that a lot of people will click on the button to message a business but aren't 100% interested. So the downside of having the messages open-ended is that you need somebody to actually facilitate that conversation, right? And a lot of times, actually majority of the time, those messages really don't lead to much. Not to say that none of them do, just like any conversion rate, typically that's going to be a smaller percent. But just be aware that if you set up messages as your campaign objective, that if you're going to do it open-endedly, meaning that you don't go with the lead generation approach, that you will have to have somebody facilitate those. So next is conversions. Conversions would be to drive action on a particular website. So whether that be a phone call or purchasing an actual service. Catalog sales, that would be if you have items that you are selling and you wanted to sell those individually. And then store traffic is real in-life foot traffic. So if you have a public location that you want people to frequent, there are some options within that conversion objective to get people into your store. So we'll go ahead and just for the sake of an example, we'll choose lead generation here. Again, this is an ad that allows for people to fill out a lead generation form with their information and what they are interested in. And so here we can name the campaign. We can create an A/B test. So what an A/B test is, and actually, let me circle back a little bit to how we set our budget, because this will sort of play into that a little bit. So a little while ago, maybe a year or so ago, Facebook changed the way that they perform budget. And it used to be that every ad set that you create maintains a budget. What they changed recently was implementing campaign budget optimization. And how CBO works is you have your main campaign that has a set budget, and then you have ad sets underneath it. And ad sets essentially are what hold the different ads within them. And in the past, like I said, you could set an ad budget based on each individual ad set. But what CBO actually does is sets one budget for all of your ad sets. And what the benefit to that is that it does a little bit of testing for you and improving. And so what Facebook AI will do is it'll go into your ad set and it'll see what they think will work the best and or what is working the best. And it'll dedicate the majority of your budget to that particular ad set. Now, that's very helpful in knowing what works and to optimize campaigns so that you're not wasting spend or you're not going over budget. But do be aware that you don't have the same type of control over your budget when you use CBO. Meaning that if you want to run all of your ad sets evenly, so if you want to distribute the spend evenly and you don't want Facebook to optimize to what they think would work best, then you don't want to set CBO. Or you'd have to make campaigns with a single ad set rather than multiple ad sets, and then all of the CBO budget will be spent on that one particular ad set. So for this example, we'll stick with CBO, and we'll go with a daily budget and just leave it to 100. So for a campaign bid strategy, you have a few options here. One is the default, which is lowest cost. So if you're familiar with digital advertising or marketing, a lot of how it works is there is an auction. The auction is live and the auction is immediate and controlled by AI. So your bid strategy goes against a few different things, but the main is competitors. So whoever's essentially willing to bid more. So you have a few options here. Like I said, lowest cost, that will really give you the lowest cost bid. Cost cap is a little bit different. I haven't actually had too much experience with cost cap. I think really what that does is it just puts a limit on how much you're willing to spend overall. Whereas other options here, which is bid cap and target cost, you're able to narrow it down a little bit more precisely and say, okay, whatever my objective is, whether it's views or leads or whatever it may be, here's my cap. This is the absolute max I'm willing to spend. And then they have more of a vague option, a roundabout option saying target cost. Okay, I'm willing to spend around $10 or around $15 per action. So that's what's in the campaign setup. Within ad set, we have a few more options here, mostly in regards to who we're going to put the ad in front of, and also some of the creative placement. So again, here's the spot for ad set name. This is just a recommendation. What I like to do is I like to actually name the campaign, the ad set, and the ad all the same. And then if I have any variations, I like to maybe put that variation at the end in parentheses. The reason I do that is when I go back and look at some of the reporting, it's just very easy to see the difference between the two. Without doing that, things can sort of either seem very similar and you can't tell the difference between the two, or I guess too broad where you wouldn't really be able to associate and add or remember, I guess you could say, the ad that you created. So here is the page that you would associate the ad with. Dynamic creative isn't anything that we've really played around with much. Essentially what you can do is just have Facebook optimize various forms of creative and publish those based on what they think is the best approach. Audience is going to be who you are playing the ad in front of, who you're placing the ad in front of. And you have a lot of different options here. So first is custom audiences. And what a custom audience is an audience based on data in the past. So here are the various sources that Facebook allows you to create. And the first one here is website. So I can create an ad and say, okay, I want this ad to play in front of people that have visited my website in a certain amount of time. So this is all based on your Facebook Pixel. Facebook Pixel is a little add-on to your web page that actually tracks activity and tags particular users. So this is sort of the backbone to knowing who has been on your site. And so it associates a Facebook account with the person who is actively on your website. And so here you can choose some different variations, some different options. All website visitors who have visited a specific page, how much time they've spent on your website, and then different events. So that Facebook Pixel, you can set up different events here. So a page view, if they've submitted a lead form, if they've chosen the Contact Us button, different things like that. So you can get very narrow into who you are advertising to. Another one here is customer list. And this is really good for B2B businesses. So if you have just a Excel spreadsheet or something like that with customer names and email addresses, you can actually import that into Facebook and have your advertising directed only towards those people. And what's beneficial about that, especially for B2B marketing, is that you're sort of cutting out the rest of the fat. You're not wasting ad spend on people who are not business owners or decision makers. App activity, that's if you have a mobile app, some options there based on how somebody uses the app, how frequently, things like that. Offline activity, we haven't really delved too much into this. There are some different options here. It says here to the right, if they've been in your store or if they've interacted with your business and other offline channels. In order to set this up, you need to create offline events. And like I said, this isn't something that we have really done all that much with, but it's here and available. So as far as Facebook sources go, you have video. So this is sources like I was talking about before on who has seen your video, how much they've watched your video. And again, this is to sort of narrow down your audience to ensure that you are playing an ad to people who are interested in it. For the days set, this is, you've accomplished this type of engagement in the past how many days. So I never like to set this very high. If somebody has watched a video a year ago, chances are that if they haven't been maintaining contact with the brand, that they don't even remember the video. So it really renders this obsolete to set this too high. So generally I set this to 30 days. And I guess for an example here, we'll choose people who have watched 75% of the video. And then what we can do is go in here and actually choose the video that we want. So you see here that this indicator shows how many 3-second views that each one of our videos has had. Now, if you want to get a little bit more direct, right, we set this at 75%. And so this video is 23 seconds long. A 3-second view doesn't account for 75%. So I'd have to actually go back into this particular video, look at the metrics and see, all right, which videos had maybe the most people watching 75% of it. Because the last thing I want to do is choose, let's say, this video here. It only had 32 3-second views. This must have been a video maybe on organic social media. I don't want to run advertising to only 32 people. Well, really even maybe smaller than 32 people, because this is only saying, this is only representing 3-second views rather than the 75%. So, I want to make sure that number is high. So I'd have to go into some of the analytics and look at that and then come back here. Unfortunately, they don't have all the analytics in this pane. But for sake of an example, we'll choose this one here and hit confirm. And so what we have is an audience that says, we want to run this advertisement in front of the exact same people who have watched this video 75% duration in the past 30 days. And then we can name that audience. So let's name it here as test. We'll go ahead and create. And it says here, it takes up to 30 minutes for the audience to be ready to use. So that's custom audiences. I think I covered all of them. Oh no, I forgot some. So that was just video. Instagram account. So this is various metrics to do with Instagram and engagement on Instagram. Lead form. This is really beneficial if you're running a lot of lead gen campaigns. You can actually run advertisements to people who have opened a lead gen form but never filled it out. You can run advertisements to people who actually did fill out a lead gen form and different things like that concerning your lead gen forms. And then you can actually create multiple lead gen forms, so you can specify the parameters to those specific lead gen forms based on what they are. So, maybe you have various different services that you offer, and you want to run an advertisement specific to one of those. Events is if you create a Facebook event and people RSVP to it, you can market to those specific people. So that can be powerful if you're running multiple events or a similar event. Instant experience. So Facebook allows you to create what is essentially their version of a landing page. It's meant so that people don't have to exit Facebook. They remain there on Facebook, but they get a landing page experience. If you don't know what a landing page is, essentially what it is a single page marketing for marketing. Usually it generates a lot of awareness in the beginning. It moves into why you would want to buy the product. And then at the end, it gives that person a call to action to actually purchase it. It's just a nice, quick way of showcasing a product or service and getting information out quick without the consumer having to click around a bunch. So you can base future advertisements on past results of your instant experience and those who were highly engaged. Next is Facebook page. So if somebody likes your Facebook page or is a follower or multiple parameters to do with Facebook, you can set that up. And then lastly, marketplace listings. So marketplace listings is if you've created or tried to sell an item on Marketplace, you can create campaigns specific to those people. So that's custom audience. And the other option here is lookalike audience. So again, lookalike audience has a source that you need to pull from. So what's our data source? What this uses is two variables that you can choose from. One is a custom audience. So that's what we were just talking about before, which is, how much somebody has watched a video or how they've interacted with your brand in various different ways. So that would be the source. And then also which is really, really, really beneficial, you can actually upload your customer lifetime value information. What I mean by that is the amount of revenue a single customer nets your business in their lifetime. So that's sort of a whole nother discussion. But if you know what that means, what you can actually do is upload a CSV file, an Excel file that has a list of names, email addresses, and the dollar amount that they've actually netted your business. What Facebook does with that is it goes out and it tries to associate that email address with an actual Facebook account. And then it takes their Facebook account and it runs a lot of AI in the background on exactly who they are, what they're interested in, different things like that. And it tries to find people who are exactly like them. So it's super powerful to find essentially copycats of your existing client base. So once you have a source set, you want to set a location. And now this is a very broad location. And the reason why it's broad is this isn't necessarily who you're going to be placing the ad in front of. This is just who it's going to be gathering data from. So the reason why they only allow you to do regions or countries is, in my opinion, based on culture. So in a particular region or country, there's a specific culture. And so that helps Facebook understand exactly who people are. Going back to who you're going to put the ad in front of, that's actually going to be over in the ad set, not in here, and in another portion of the ad set, not here. Lastly is audience size. So this is essentially the percentage of commonality between your source and between your future audience. So the higher you go here, the more broad scope you're going to find. So you'll have, let's say, for example, somebody is interested in Star Wars, but they're like, you have a very specific niche that's like Han Solo fans or something. You wouldn't want to get too broad here because you would be running this advertisement in front of all Star Wars fans. You would want to bring this down a little bit because we're at a very narrow niche for who our demographic is. Conversely, if you're maybe just trying to find people who are into, let's say, sports, it's very broad. So, we'd maybe pull this up to maybe 4 or 5. When using a lookalike audience, I don't like to go much further than 5. I think that you just get a little bit too broad, and you sort of get out of what this is meant for. This is meant for finding your particular niche, finding people who you feel as if would be your perfect demographic, your perfect client base. So keep that in mind when you're creating lookalike audiences. So outside of lookalike audience here in the audience options, we have location. So if we click edit there, by default, we'll have United States as the option. But if we type here Rochester, New York, it comes up as a city. And we have a couple different options here as far as location targeting for cities, or you can actually do counties, or I believe even towns as well. So you see here that we have this radius set, and the radius is 25 miles. We can go as low as 10, as high as 50. And then you can also choose this option here, which is current city only. And this is just within city limits. So if we click that, you can see that the diameter went away, and now we're only marketing to a demographic within city limits. In addition to that, you can also choose some options out of this panel here. You can choose people living or recently in this location, people living in this location, recently in this location, or traveling in this location. So, logic tells you that, if you are maybe a dentist or, doctor or something like that, you would want to market to people living in this location, not people who are just recently there or traveling. Whereas maybe you're a bar or a restaurant, you would choose maybe one of these, either recently in or traveling to. So that narrows things down even more. You have age, you have gender, and then in detailed targeting, you have quite a bit of options here. And this is sort of where rubber meets the road as far as targeting goes. So in here, you can search for specific demographics, interests, or behaviors. So for this client, it is a construction and maintenance client. They build patios and different landscaping and things for residential clients. So if we wanted to market to people who are interested in patios, simply type patio in and select that as an interest. Now, traditionally, when you think about interests, you think about various things that people are into, meaning like hobbies or things like that. That's not necessarily the way that this is describing interests. So if you are familiar with Google keywords, it's very similar to this. So essentially what an interest is if somebody shows interest in any of these different categories. So if they've searched for patios, if they've been watching patio videos, different things like that. So it's not just people who are like hobbyists or enjoy doing certain things. So you can go ahead and you can search in this search panel for various options. Sometimes if you have a specific demographic such as this, like patio, it's best to search. But when you're going after specific types of people, meaning demographics, the best way to do that is to click this browse button. And this little drop down comes through, and you'll click on demographics. And this is sort of where Facebook gets a little creepy. If you are, I've ever noticed that you've been talking to somebody about something, or you've recently searched for something, and you feel like, how the heck did they know that I was into that, or who I was, or any of this stuff? This is where all that happens. So as far as demographics, you have a few here. You have education. So excuse me. You have education, which is education level. So you can go, college degree, high school grad, all this different stuff, unspecified. You can get into fields of study. You can get into schools, undergrad years, a lot of different options there. financial, so, income level. So if, maybe you have a product that's very high end, or you have a product that is meant for people in lower income areas, you can set these parameters. Life events is pretty crazy. So if they're away from family, away from their hometown, they have an anniversary coming up within a specific amount of days. That would be for like gifts, things like that. Away from family, maybe like, I don't know, if you have like an application that helps you stay in touch with family. If you have a birthday coming up, friends of is pretty crazy. So if you have a close friend that has a birthday coming up, you can advertise to them about various birthday gifts that they might want to buy. Friends of people who have recently moved, all kinds of stuff. New long distance job, new job, long distance relationship, newly engaged. So if you're in the wedding market, you can market to people who are newly engaged, recently moved, who their parents are, what type of relationship they're in, their work, so their employer or the industry that they're in, all kinds of stuff here. And like I said, gets a little creepy as you get into it. Interests we sort of already went over with the patio there, and then behaviors. So this is consumer behavior and digital behavior. So you have different mobile device behavior. You have politics that you can advertise to, travel behavior. You have, let's see here, there's shopping behavior too. Purchase behavior. So you can choose this and say, hey, I want to run this advertisement only to people who have shown that they are willing to click on a call to action button in the past, or a shop now button in the past. So that's super powerful. Just various amounts of demographics that you can set here. So outside of that, you can choose detailed targeting expansion. And so what this is, a lot of times as marketers, we sort of can get a little too narrow, right? The AI isn't perfect. Sure that there are people outside of this demographic that may potentially be interested in this product, but maybe don't closely resemble exactly what we set here. So if you tick this gives you a little bit of more of a broad scope. So you're not as narrowed. So that's more of a use as you wish type of option. So as we go down here, we have placements, and you have two options: automatic placement and manual placement. I never like to use automatic placement. The reason being is that I like more granular control over my ads. With automatic placement, Facebook essentially will put your ad wherever it thinks it'll work best. And the where is these different means. So you have Facebook and Instagram, and you have the audience network, which is down here. Facebook, you have your Facebook news feed, you have Facebook stories, you have in-stream Facebook videos, various different means within the platform to advertise to. Now, this all really depends on what type of ad you've created, what your creative is. So Facebook news feed, that is probably the king or champion of this particular advertisement or campaign that we're running, because we set up a lead gen campaign. So that is a staple that I would leave as a selected placement. Instagram feed. Now that would vary based on your demographic. If you have a younger demographic, Instagram is certainly an option here. Facebook Marketplace you have Instagram Explorer, which is kind of similar to the For You page on TikTok. So you have a lot of different options. So you can see that, hey, if I've created an ad that isn't necessarily formatted for a story. So you see this example here, how this ad here is created specifically for a story, so that when somebody is using the platform, your ad isn't a sore thumb. It kind of your ad is meant exactly for that. If I were to make a story ad and it were to be a video, in widescreen format, more of a horizontal format, the consumers would sort of tell right away, like, this doesn't fit, and it is just a little bit of a subconscious pass that they would have on the video. Whereas if it's curated exactly for that form, it tends to work a lot better. So that's why I don't really do automatic placements. I'm always worried that Facebook or Instagram is going to put my ads in a place that they're not really natively meant for. But various options here, and this isn't all just based on what the ad was crafted for. It's also based on where your people live, right? Live and breathe. So, if I'm marketing to, let's say, 18 to 22 year olds, I'm probably not going to put my ad on the Facebook news feed, because younger people in that age group generally aren't engaging much with the Facebook news feed. Maybe I'll throw it in the Instagram news feed, or maybe even in Facebook Marketplace. So maybe the 18 to 20 year olds have a Facebook account, which they might not frequent much, but they use Facebook Marketplace a lot to buy and sell things. So it can be meant. You can utilize these different placements for where your audience is living. So the last option here for ad set is your optimization and spending controls. So we've already optimized our ad here for leads, and we have this cost control here, which only gets set if back in the campaign you've set one of these options here, either cost cap or bid cap and target cost. I generally will set this to lowest cost. This has always worked well for us, and I personally, there's a lot of options here, and I hate to get too restricted on certain things. Now, based on your budget, that could totally vary, but bid cost on Facebook isn't necessarily something that I'm concerned about all that much. I'm more so concerned about campaign budget and finding an ad or ad set that is playing very well and double down on that particular piece of content. Anyways, so when we change that parameter, you see here that cost control goes away, and it says that Facebook will aim to spend your entire budget and get the most leads based on the bid strategy that we set up in the campaign, which was lowest cost. As far as schedule goes, you can set a schedule that is continuous. So if you remember back in the campaign, we said that our schedule was, our budget was $100. So you can say, all right, $100 a day rather. So you can say, okay, I just want to run this ad continuously at $100 a day. Be aware, you'll have to go in and end that campaign if you don't want to spend money on it anymore. So that's a caveat. Or you can set a start and end date and say, okay, I want to run this ad for a month. I have $100 to spend. Run it for a month and don't spend outside of that time frame. Ad set spend limits, that gets into, like I was saying, the difference between campaign budget optimization and ad set budget. Remember when I said that with campaign budget optimization, Facebook sort of goes through your different ad sets and finds the one that's working the best? Well, this is maybe a way to tone that down a little bit. So you can set different ad spend limits based on the ad set. So you can say, okay, ad set 1, I minimally want to spend this much on it daily, and maximum want to spend this much. Whereas maybe another ad set, you say, I like this one a lot better, I think it's going to work more. Maybe you'd bump that up a little bit. I generally don't get into this. To me, this sort of defeats the purpose. I would probably set a ad set budget rather than a campaign budget optimization if I was going to go ahead and do this, but the option is there. As we move down into the ad, we have the name again here, the identity on where we're actually going to place the ad. So This here will depend on what you've set as far as placements go. So if we didn't set anything up for Instagram, this wouldn't be needed. The format, so again, this is the creative, so this is the actual ad itself. We can have a carousel, which is multiple blocks, if you will, that consumers can scroll through left to right. That would be good for somebody that's more taking a catalog approach where they have particular items or services that they're trying to sell. Single image or video is just that. It's going to be a single ad, whether that be a video or an image. And this panel here is your media. So if we hit this clear all and choose add media, we can add an image or a video. So let's go ahead here, and you can do this in various different ways. You can upload an image or a video from your computer, or you can go and find a image that you've already posted on either Facebook or Instagram, or Facebook actually has some stock photos you can choose from as well. I don't recommend the stock photos. Obviously, there's no real branding to those. So let's go ahead. We'll choose this one, which I think is what was chosen before. And then what's nice is you can actually edit the image. So there's some cropping, or you can add like stickers, things like that. Our agency doesn't get into that much because we're creating advertisements, formatting advertisements before they're finalized. So we don't really have a need to go in here and mess with them within Facebook. But if you don't have that ability, you can do it right here on the platform. The nice thing too is if you're running an ad on Facebook and Instagram, or like Facebook stories and Facebook newsfeed, you can change what the ad looks like based on those particular placements. So remember I was saying, we want to curate an ad that looks good on Facebook stories if we're going to do a Facebook stories ad. So that has to be a 16:9, a taller format ad. If my creative is in a position where like I'm not going to cut off any text or anything, I could go in here and I could select and edit a placement specifically just for stories. And so I could crop my image to a 16:9 format specifically just for stories, and then I can leave like the in-stream videos or newsfeed ads at a 1920 by 1080 format. Next is your copy. So your primary text is going to be the caption at the top of your post. So let's type in here, this is the caption for your post. And so as you create these ads, we have the wrong thing set here. Oh, it looks like when I set the ad set here and the placements, I forgot to recheck Facebook newsfeed. So let me go back and check that. So now you'll have all the different placements that you chose back in the ad set available here. And so now we'll see like this is sort of your traditional Facebook post. So that's the caption, and if you're familiar with Google AdWords, you'll know that the best practice is to capitalize the first the first letter of each word. For Facebook, I don't like to do that. I like to make the caption very natural. What I do, in contrary though, for the headline is I capitalize the headline in all caps, and I'll show you why. I'll show you why this helps. So you can see here what our preview looks like. Now, if I were to maybe just capitalize the first letter, you can see that lowercase down here, I don't know, for me, it doesn't pass the eye test. So I like to keep this all caps. Actually, let's do buy our product now, something like that. Probably would never that would never be a headline for me, but just for sake of demonstration, we'll keep it. Anyways, description is the underlying text here. So this is in a smaller font. This would maybe be like location. Oops, I have caps on. Oh man, come on. We are located at 123 Street. Something like that, and you can see down below it just gives you a little bit of extra real estate. Now, how this works is you can only have a description or a display link. So if you have a display link here, which is your website, you're short on space, right? So in order to fit these three, they all have to be one-liners. So if we make this really long, or I'm sorry, it would have to be this. If we make that really long, you see how it eliminates the description. So if you want to use all three, you have to be very concise. I generally don't like to use all three. I usually only put a description or a display link in. I think it just sort of crowds the ad a little bit too much, especially if you also have a caption at the top. So generally I'll just use one or the other. Lastly is the call to option button. So this is, the button that they'll press to perform a particular action. This button varies based on the campaign objective you set. So this one's lead gen form. So these are a lot of lead gen type call to action buttons. And they do different things. So if you were to have maybe a reach campaign, your call to action button might be, visit our website or something like that. If you are just trying to get video watches or subscribers maybe to a YouTube channel, it'd be like watch more, and then you'd have a link after they click that button. It'd be a link to the YouTube channel. So for this example, for the lead gen format, our call to action button brings them to our lead gen form. And this is done, as explained before, in two different ways. You can either do an instant form, which is something like this here on the right-hand side that pops up and gives them the ability to answer some questions, fill in their contact information, some private policy, and then a final thank you, we've received your information, visit our website for more. The other option is the automated chat. And the automated chat gives you the ability, let it load here, to create a chat bot and have those preformed questions to where people can answer. This, again, to me, I don't think is as valuable as the instant form. The instant form, people sort of understand what it is. It's easy to follow, it's quick, it's concise. To me, if you're going to be setting a chat up, I like you. Well, hold on, let me take a step back. You can do it one of two ways. You can have it completely natural, meaning that somebody mans the chat and answers the chat from A to Z. You can also have a hybrid approach where you have a list of options that people can ask about, and then based on whatever they select, there is an answer that you automatically create and is sent to them. So you can sort of get best of both worlds. The other approach is fully automated, which this is, where we're asking the questions, they're answering the questions, and that's really it. Now you can jump in the middle and chat with the person as they're filling this out, but it's not really what it's meant for, and it tends to kind of screw up the chat and the purpose of it. So all that to say that I like the instant form, but depending on your business or your capabilities, you might want to go with the chat too. So sort of already went over the instant form and what it's capable of. I like to leave this here as a long form answer, just based on if a business is offering different services. You can use this to qualify people as well. So we have one client where a potential consumer has to be on Medicaid. So, this can be, are you on Medicaid? Yes or no. And if they answer no, we know that is a non-qualified lead. And so it just sort of helps, comb out some of those non-qualified ones. But you can do a bunch of different things within the form to better suit your business. And then finally in the process, we have the Facebook pixel. So if you remember when we were talking about the custom audiences and the data set that we had to pull from, you set your Facebook pixel, which is the tracking on this ad. So if you have different Facebook pixels, you would switch this out. Generally for clients, we keep this Facebook pixel the same, and it tracks all our different events. Here are the offline events that we can track. Turning that on as well. You'd have to manage your offline event sets and set different parameters for that. And actually, just like Facebook too, you'd have to do that as well. Facebook has a nice little tool. I think it's actually just called the Event Setup tool, where you click a button, it brings you to your website in kind of like this editor panel, and you can click around your website and you can label different things as a specific action. So you can label your phone number on your website as, if somebody clicks this, it counts as a call. Or if somebody fills out a lead gen form on the website, it counts as a lead. And that helps with capturing different metrics and delivering some reporting on your ads. So that's Facebook ads in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it when you get into some of these particulars, especially within the audience, and there's a lot to manage and a lot to pay attention to, and even after an ad is run, sometimes there's no perfect science to it. So as far as us, we're in it day in, day out, so we know what has worked best in the past, and so we try to implement based on what we know and our knowledge. But a lot of times there is a trial period where you sort of have to see exactly what's working, what's resonating with the audience, if a particular audience you're setting is indeed interested, and you go from there. So a lot to it, but hopefully that helps in your Facebook ad endeavors.